Hello Summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. This one is going to cover everything you need to do in order to prepare yourself for the next patch. With this knowledge, you'll have an edge on your opponents who are still adjusting and have a bad read on the meta. 9.19 is a pretty huge patch, the one that Worlds is going to be played on this year. Based on balance changes, emerging picks, and what seems strong, we are going to give you advice on how to prepare yourself. Once the new patch rolls out, you'll be ready to win more games. There's a lot to cover, and all of this information is relevant no matter what role you play. Do note, however, that a lot of this is based on the plan changes based off of information given to us by rioters and the PBE. Things can always change, so be ready to adapt. Our question for you guys in this video is, which items do you think need buffs or nerfs, if there are any? Let us know your answers down below with any feedback or comments that you might have. But before we get started, make sure you go to ProGuides.com if you want to see huge improvements in your rank. We upload video guides similar to this one on our website every single day, and as of now, we're currently uploading a challenger gameplay analysis guide for every single champion, so make sure you click that link below. Also, we have an exclusive coaching feature called Play with a Pro, which provides instant, on-demand 24/7 coaching from the best of the best. Trust me guys, you don't want to miss out on this, so sign up today. Now with that being said, let's jump into it. Without any general gameplay changes such as runes, we will go ahead and start with the top lane. In terms of champion changes, there is a lot, and to avoid redundancy, we're not going to cover all of them. If you want to know more about them, you can go check those out in our upcoming changes video on our channel. The most anticipated change in question this patch is going to be what's going on with Garen. Alongside some simultaneous Yuumi nerfs, this is going to render that duo much weaker in the bottom lane. While likely still playable, they won't be as dominant anymore, especially in the later stages of the game. His changes, however, are not going to push through next patch, but the Yuumi nerfs are almost certainly going to. It's more likely that Garen will be pushed into solo lanes more often as a result of these changes. There's going to be changes to every single one of his abilities that are currently in the works, but we will discuss those once it's more certainty that he will come out with the live server. Like we said, it's going to be pushed later on, so nevertheless, it's a good idea to start learning these matchups. Garen as a champion, not very challenging, that's for sure, but like any champion, it's still worth putting in the time, that way you can test your limits and also learn more about specific matchups. If he's remaining untouched, he's going to remain as a solid solo laner because of his incredibly high base stats. Overall, the biggest change to Garen this patch is, ironically, or perhaps unironically, the nerfs to Yuumi. Several other top laners are seeing some pretty big balance changes this patch. Ornn, Riven, Fiora, Sion, and Mordekaiser are all receiving some small buffs to help them out. And as a player, it's also in your best interest to learn champions who thrive against them, like Poppy and Fiora, or a Klepto abuser like Vayne, Lucian, or Kennen to hard counter those lanes. You'll want to specifically practice building leads safely and consistently. While it's great that you can come out of laning phase 3-0 and an item ahead, you shouldn't rely on these types of games. Typically, these champions want to scale anyway, so if your opponents are playing correctly, you honestly should not come out of lane with any solo kills. Instead, you'll want to rely on strong counterpicks to create small, natural advantages with the use of good minion wave management. This is the top lane after all, so this concept is paramount. If you need help with minion wave management, feel free to check out the only minion wave management guide you'll ever need, or ProGuides.com, where you can find our laning essentials course where we talk more in depth about it. Most importantly, we do need to talk about Fiora and Riven. For those of you who are confident in their mechanics, you definitely want to learn Fiora right now. If the buffs follow through completely, she's definitely going to be a disgustingly strong solo queue pick. Even if they don't, it's almost certain that she'll receive some sort of buff, so it definitely is not going to hurt you if you start putting in some time. While she's not receiving any bonus combat power, as of now her turret breaking speed is a huge leap forward, as now she'll be able to Q turrets and also crit them with her E. On the flip side, make sure to pick up an Executioner's Calling more often when playing against Fiora. It's an essential item to take her on, and again, she's not getting any stronger in terms of combat itself. You want to take any measures that you can to prevent her from scaling up. It's also likely that picks like Jace or Ryze will gain some more popularity as a result of a counter. We might even see Teemo come back as more of a prevalent pocket pick, as his blind makes playing Fiora pretty rough. I find that ranged top laners are typically going to be the best answer against Fiora. You can poke her out, and anytime she plays aggressively, you can use your combos and abilities to disengage or even fight her head on. A lot of them get extremely impatient once you've built some CS leads or have been poking them out constantly, and you can save your abilities to avoid her aggression and punish her afterwards. Once behind, Fiora can feel extremely weak. Riven had some insane changes lined up, but after feedback from users, Riot has decided to tone down the changes that they had planned for her. This is one change we'll let you guys know about in detail during this video. Riven's Q cooldown is having its cooldown increased by 1 second at all ranks, but her E is having its cooldown reduced by 2. Once again, she's going to be able to use her shield more often, making her a safer, more mobile pick, so make sure you have a Poppy or Renekton pick ready to counter her whenever somebody looks for her blind. In the jungle, we see some changes to Gragas, Graves, Sylas, Xin Zhao, Zac, Rek'Sai, and Sejuani. Now is definitely going to be a good time to pick up Xin Zhao. One of our analysts plays him while auto-filled and with great success. Even small buffs like these are huge when it comes to a simple champion like Xin, as a lot of his power derives from knowing the answer to, am I stronger than my opponent at this point? Any extra buffs means that this answer more often than not is going to be yes. Zac, Rek'Sai, and Graves are also receiving some minor buffs. None of these buffs, including Xin Zhao's, are game-breaking, but definitely a reason to possibly pick them up again, especially if you already know how to play them. If you only play jungle when you're auto-filled, the best champions to play are going to be Xin Zhao, Mundo, or Vi. They're simple and effective at the same time, and when you play them, you'll get the best result for the least amount of effort. However, if you're a jungle main, consider adding Graves and Rek'Sai to your champion pool. Rek'Sai's buffs are honestly negligible, but some of the toughest competition is getting nerfed. With Graves, the small buffs might give him enough of a boost in the early game to allow him to snowball even harder. In lower elo, take advantage of the longer game times and how much easier it is to gank your opponents. Try to play champions like the ones that we listed because they have strong ganking potential and also can scale quite well into the mid game. Though they do fall short in the late game, it's beneficial to play a champion who has presence all game long rather than one that can only attempt to scale. We honestly hate being Debbie Downers here at ProGuides, but if the Sejuani nerfs go through, it might be time to put her down for a few patches. Her late game damage is taking a giant hit, and her solo queue win rate is already a bit questionable. Outside of these changes, we do have some tips for junglers moving on to the next patch. Following some buffs and some changes, lane bullies are a lot more popular in the bot lane than before. Whenever you get one of them on your team, definitely try to make an effort to secure some vision control for them or hover for them when they need to hard shove their waves. It's essential to have pressure for them, that way they can abuse their strength, which is the early game. One option is what we just mentioned, be there for them directly. Another thing you can do is learn to effectively create pressure on the top side. If you can generate presence, you draw the enemy jungler to the top side, effectively accomplishing the same goals of giving your bot lane an isolated lane. Your ultimate goal here is to make sure that the enemy jungler doesn't interfere or that you're there to match their plays. In the mid lane, we're seeing some buffs to Cassiopeia, Veigar, Orianna, Twisted Fate, and Heimerdinger. Honestly, no surprises there. Orianna buffs just in time for Worlds. For you Donger enthusiasts, it's time to rise up and dominate the Rift. He's not exclusively played in the mid lane, and in fact, he's a bully any lane he goes to. You can create so much pressure by yourself in the laning phase, and later on into the game in the jungle with your turrets. Specifically, Heimer's turrets are getting stronger, so you'll be able to take advantage of both of these strengths even more. So make sure to brush up on landing your grenades and missiles if you know how to play Heimerdinger, or pick him up ASAP to abuse him next patch. Orianna and Cassio have felt a little bit lacking, but these buffs should put them in a better spot to carry their games. Pick them up again if you already are comfortable on them, but if not, you should maybe put your attention towards Twisted Fate or Veigar. Twisted Fate is receiving more attack speed and a little bit more damage on his stacked deck. This means you'll have an easier time last hitting with him now, and it also means that his popular AD build is getting even stronger. Both he and Veigar are extremely strong pick makers in solo queue, so it's a lot easier to make crucial game-changing plays with them as opposed to some other champions. As a tank player, you'll want to be building Adaptive Helm more often than before. Heimerdinger and Cassiopeia are far from fun to play against, and dropping some gold to pick one up will help you bear with them. Down bottom, Vayne and Ashe are receiving some buffs. They're anything but new faces on the world stage, so we're anticipating that they'll both have some competitive presence, especially during play-ins and groups where teams will feel a little bit safer pulling them out. Ashe's Q is receiving a buff that it allows it to properly reset your auto attack. Aside from hopping onto the PBE, there isn't really a way to practice this before it goes live. Once it does, however, hop into a custom or a training game to get a feel for it. It's definitely a nice buff, and it will allow Ashe to dominate her lanes a bit more. What you can do for now though is become more familiar with her matchups and also her builds. Both her Comet and Lethal Tempo builds are popular for different reasons, so try experimenting with them and find out which one works better for you. Vayne is a pretty volatile pick. On the other hand, it's best to reserve her for her easier matchups like Ezreal. She has a little bit more power on her ultimate, so feel free to continue playing her if you already are. For those of you looking to pick up something new or help you carry your autofill games, we advise you picking up Jhin and Caitlyn. Their buffs this patch have helped them thrive, and we expect them to ride this high for a couple of patches. They're not extremely difficult to pick up, but pretty hard to master. If you end up liking them though, you can start spending more time on them, making them a perfect investment of your time right now. Whether it's a couple of games or a couple of 100 games, you will see results based on how much time you invested. If you're interested in this role, check out our Marksman macro guide on our channel too, because lane swaps are going to be more important this patch since the meta is starting to lean towards longer range champions. In longer range matchups, it's more common that you'll find first turret by slowly whittling it down. It can be pretty confusing what you need to do afterwards, but is absolutely well worth learning. Acting effectively and consistently on the leads that you're creating in lane will allow you to dominate next patch, where more snowbally champs won't be as common. Blitzcrank's buffs are currently on the way, so watch out support mains. Actually, watch out everybody, because every player definitely needs to look out for one of our favorite or most hated OG champs, since his hook is potentially having its range increased by 100. Blitzcrank currently falls a little bit short of his competitors like Thresh, Nautilus, and Pyke, but after this buff, he'll instead have a slightly longer range than them, and this will take a little bit of getting used to by both Blitzcrank players and everyone else panicking in their attempts to not get grabbed. It honestly takes one good hook to win the game, so be conscious of this change in case it does roll through next patch. Other supports receiving changes are Karma, Yuumi, and Tahm Kench. We don't think the Karma nerfs really do anything to her as a support, but they will instead take away her power as a flex pick. Yuumi and Tahm's nerfs are a bit more serious, so it might be time to pick up some other champs. Janna and Pyke are solid champions that you'll want to consider. Our analysts rate them pretty highly for their late game scaling and influence over the game. Disengage feels extremely strong right now, so don't undervalue picks like Janna and Nami. If you're having a hard time playing against these types of champs, make sure that you're picking up Grievous Wounds through Executioners or Morello. Kled and Renekton are strong solo laners who have built-in mechanics to help you take them on. If you're playing support though, Blitz and Bard are good answers because of their hard engage. Make sure to get some practice on these champs, that way you can crush your enemies. Take advantage of Zeke's convergence to give you that extra kill pressure as well. That covers our meta guide for 9.19. Thank you so much for watching. As always, you can check out our YouTube channel or ProGuides.com for more content designed to help you step your game up. We've partnered with pro players to create the best guides for you guys, so we really hope that you take the time to check them out. Until next time, good luck on the Rift, and we'll see you all later.